officers and also one of the regular patrol officers from time to time.
Not to interrupt you, but there's a microphone at the podium.
Okay.
If you could stay there, they can hear you.
I have a habit of walking.
Sorry
Not that
about
mic, it's the mic for... Up, right here? Okay. All right, I apologize. I have met some of the council members, and for those of you that have not met me, I'm Officer Sean Lose. It gets confusing when you say Sean, and I look too, and you're actually talking to the chief. So it gets a little troublesome at times. As of most of you are aware, I had filled out some paperwork to All Traffic Solutions here several months ago, and we were awarded one of their Shield 15 traffic monitoring devices. Some of the things that they have over some of the other signs that you see where they're trying to have an impact on speed and kind of curb the excessive speeding and make people more aware of what's going on, comes to the point of this one actually records data and it's shareable to us through their cloud. In working with Julie Siskin out of Virginia, then I determined that it was a State College-based company, so it made it more appealing and a little bit more force to put into it. The gratuitous donation that they presented to us was kind of an interesting toy to play with, or tool per se, because I would have never imagined some of the data that I'm going to present to you tonight, and it was just in a one-week study. There's features that we can do with the sign that will allow us to put it up where it won't display speeds, so we can record speeds that are coming in. It doesn't flash the speed, but it gives us data without it on, and it's collected before people even really know the sign's there. We can turn it on to indicate the speed of the oncoming motorist, or we can turn around and we can place it in so the timing is critical, but we can actually obtain some pictures of the vehicles so we have an idea if it's a repeat car that we keep seeing in some of the pictures of the data obtained, that we can maybe focus them, and kind of the general approach is a whisper in the ear per se that would, hey, you need to slow it down. Here's a picture of your car. The device is a simple device that runs off a radar, same as the state police uses, only it uses a receiving antenna that records the analytical data. I prepared some packets for you. We'll start out with the volume of the speed. And I apologize, I wasn't sure how many were going to be here, so if I run short, that's on me. Thank you. And this data is available to us from any website. It runs I can set it up that it will download every 15 minutes, and we can generate a report. The one I gave you was by speed. When you're looking at the data that I provided you, or the information you have in front of you, when you get down to the bottom, the number of cars that came in Bishop Street from Sunday, August 1st till Sunday, August 8th is rather astounding to me, because the raw numbers were 56,604. That's in a one-week period in a non-school related kind of summertime traffic. That's all eastbound at the intersection of Bishop Street and Airport Road. As you further look at some of the data, it'll give you the calculation, it'll give you the average speeds between 1 to 5, and it breaks it up in 5 to 6 mile an hour increments. And then you start to see where the threshold becomes the average is about 36 to 40 miles an hour. In those thresholds, we don't see, yes, sir? 35 mile an hour. It's also posted on your report. It should be, at least. I was looking at it, I thought it was. I've looked at so many of these reports, some of the numbers they all kind of look familiar and the same at times. It's a posted 35 mile an hour zone well inside of the deceleration from the 45 coming in off of Zion Road. So they're well inside of the borough limits at that point when they get to Airport Road. We've captured a couple that were in the 60s and one or two up into the 70s. Those kind of things It's presenting itself to save officer time, but it also gives us data to tell when the peak times are and when we have, the problem child per se shows its face. And it's interesting because I have another one here for you that's a speed effectiveness summary that I'll hand out to you then, that shows when the sign's disabled, and there's a 1 to 2% increase or decrease whether the sign's illuminated or it's not. So, and it's capturing them at 700 feet out, so they're not even aware their speed's being monitored at that point yet, because it was picking them up about the Park Avenue entrance there by Northwest Bank. So that's the kind of range that we were starting to capture the data at. And they're not even aware that they're being checked at that point. So that's a broad spectrum to have a deceleration, or what point do they turn around and realize that they're speeding. I've moved the sign around from time to time and have taken it into Howard Street to capture it. And I took an afternoon and just decided it was nice out, it was windy, it wasn't too humid, and I sat on a stone in front of the old Centercrest building, hid the car, and it was impressive to see the speeds in the 40s, and they got down to the sign and they were down to the high 20s and low 30s. So they were decelerating as soon as they hit it. So it had a very visual impact on them, and I had turned off the readout, and when I came back and was able to pull it up for that day, it really didn't change a whole lot. It did have some, but when I did have the higher speeds, the deceleration was about 7% decrease. So that's a marked improvement of coming through. One of the benefits that I feel to this is some of the complaints that we get for some of the residential areas. It'll prove some things, but the other side of it is it'll be hard to deploy because it requires us a street post or a sign. PennDOT, I've been working well with the sign supervisor at PennDOT, and he gave me the information that legally I can't put it on a speed limit sign because no other sign can be posted on a state highway speed limit sign other than their speed regulation. So far I've been dancing in the graces of them, and I did it anyway. I asked for forgiveness, and it's one of those things that, and we talked about it, he said you had to look at the area where you were doing it. If there's a sign not too far before it, one in that general area, and it's not going to cause a problem where it's visual or something, we assumed a little bit of liability, but we were in good graces of that. So I've been working close with them trying to identify some sites on state roads. They're willing to put up or erect signposts for us that will allow us some flexibility. We were able to get 5 more brackets that we could put up through some assistance money from Mr. Stewart giving us the okay to use some, I forget the account's name, Highway Assistance Fund money or something, but we were able to get those so we can move it around a little bit. And if the future ever comes that the borough feels the need to, get another one, we can move the one that truly records the data to where the problems are, and we can kind of move them around and see them visually. The next one I wanted to give you was some of the effectiveness, and this will give you the same thing for, thank you. This one will show where if you look down when you receive your packet, when you look down the left-hand column, it will show speed sign or disabled. And this is an effectiveness report that was generated for the same time frame on Bishop Street. And I used that one just because it was the one where I had the largest time and the largest variation of speeds. When you're looking down, when you see sign mode, the third column in from the left, it's going to say speed display. Well, then it comes down to a point that it'll say display off. That's where you're going to gain some of your average and what's in compliance and what's not. So this is where some of the data where I was coming up with the 1 to 2%, but it lets you as the council see the raw traffic other than how many cars come through, because we never truly see what the speeds are based on an air tube counter. The device itself is set up in a manner that if we get excessive speeds, it sends an email or a text message to my phone or whichever area I send it to, or set into the parameters for it, it's almost instantaneous. And we did it with one of the other officers. We had them come through just to see what it was going to do. By the time he got past me, my phone was already alerting me that there was an excessive speed. So if there was an officer sitting there, per se, it would be possible to set it up that it's going to alert them. However, the downfall of the sign is we can't use it for traffic enforcement. There's nothing to say that the NRAD unit or VASCAR lines couldn't be put out or stopwatch lines couldn't be put in those areas, because you need to be on the back side of the sign where you can't read the readout. So there's never a contention in a hearing that would be problematic that say, well, they used what was on the sign. Well, I can't see what's on the sign. I just had an alert of excessive speed coming my way. I had it up for 18 miles an hour and over. The posted 35 mile an hour the limit. I spent probably a good 20 minutes dumping emails out of my email because it kept sending excessive speed alerts, and it got rather cumbersome. So there are some things that it has done for us. It's kind of made a little bit more awareness amongst the officers when time frames are, and the chief, we've been discussing it, and as well as Sergeant Brower, that now we have some time we can truly focus and say, you need to be in these areas, and that's for their directives, but it's information that they provide to you as well. And if we have things where the general public is complaining about a certain street, Woodlawn, or somewhere like Park Avenue, that the speeds are excessive, we could even set it up in a blind mode that it's turned off, or stealth mode that it's turned off, and capturing the data just so the average motoring public, because the general conception is, well, the thing must be dead, it's not working, it's malfunctioning. It's truly not. I brought it along with me so you can have a chance to look at it. This is the device and what it's capable of, that All Traffic Solutions has put it together, and the benefit was they're all Center County residents and employees and Center County-based company that built it. So I'm not trying to be a salesman for their company, but it's kind of nice to have it stay here at home. And that, the camera that it has in it, it provides some good things. But if we have an event going on or something that's going on, the other thing that it does in the area it's in, and I won't tell you all its little tricks that it'll do, but I can set it up to do an awareness picture. And by the way, just by me picking it up, I'm pretty sure there's a tamper alert in my email with a picture of the council now. So we can set it up for 15-minute intervals to take a picture. So if there's something that we wanted to monitor, we could. Yes, sir.
Did they sell the unit without the sign, just the camera?
I do not know the answer to that, because I thought of a different one, similar to those lines, more of the line of just counting the speed of cars, and we don't even need the readout, just so we can. It would be a smaller compact device, and that's something that I want to talk to them about if they haven't, if they would, if it would be something to pilot with them, just because we could install it in a smaller location and still monitor the speed and have the data come back.
And that might not think you're conflicting with their
Well,
signs.
and like I said, we worked with them, and they said if you need to do it, they'll be glad to put posts in. So it's just getting the one call done and doing it properly so we don't run into any infrastructure problems. So, but if I talk fast, I apologize. It's my nature. He always tells me I talk too much, so I try and get it all into one small box. But the compliance of it is, I think it's an effective device. I know myself doing what I do. I've caught myself coming in Harrison Road, or I've caught myself coming up. I look for it, and I kind of test it out to see if I can get myself and where I'm at. And I'm not trying to speed per se, but I'm trying to see if I can match my speed, because the calculation to figure out the timing on the camera is very difficult. So, because I have to deal with feet of the radar, the bandwidth till it receives it back, the motion, the momentum of the vehicle, and the delay time for the trigger of the camera. So it has gotten rather complicated, and we're talking about fractions of a second. So we've been working with them, and they said, well, there's a lot of factors that come into play, and atmospheric conditions plays havoc in it too. Because I found on humid days it's a little slower, and that's typical radar. So, but it's been interesting to see what goes on, because I would have never come into play with the numbers that come in Bishop Street on an August day or an August week. So, yes, sir.
Say the majority of our residents are obeying the speed limit, then, when you look at this, is that right?
For the most part, they're staying within the 10 miles an hour, the window with VASCAR or NRAD that we would have to give them, which isn't excessive. The thing that I hear a lot and from 20 years of law enforcement experience is these trucks are flying. Dump trucks or big box trucks or things like that, and it's the perception of moving mass. And the perception of moving mass versus a smaller car, they're shocked to see what they are, how fast they're really driving. And I've done some of this with some of the residents here and another department I worked with. We'll set the NRAD unit up and we'll hide it off the shoulder of the road so nobody really even knows it's there. And it's a device they turn on and turn off. I'll have them estimate the speed of the car or the vehicle coming through. Oh, they're doing at least 45, and it turns out they're doing 29.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, 'cause I know years ago, we had a lot of complaints about speeding on residential streets, and we had the police go up there and time them.
Yes.
And the police come in and said, it's 35, and said hardly anybody was going 35.
When I first
Well,
started
say if
here-
you see a little car going by at 35, it's going really fast.
When I first started here, that was one of my first details, was to go out and run speed enforcement and gather some data, and I'd take a notepad and you'd hide in the driveway or back around the corner and do the same thing.
I know I've yelled at drivers going down our street, which I thought was too fast.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to point out that this is also works for traffic studies, that if people are complaining that the speed limit's too fast, too high or too low.
And I've already spoke with PennDOT and probably overstepped my gratuitous boundaries of this, but I offered the data to PennDOT if they would so like it.
Well, I think that you need that for traffic studies for a lot of, for setting speed limits on roads.
Yes.
You get the 80 percentile, and clearly most, I think we've got that on Bishop.
I think that this is probably, I think this is probably the most accurate data that we've ever collected as far as speed, because it has no human error in it, other than the motion of the vehicle coming towards the device. There's nothing where a stopwatch or a switch on a VASCAR unit has a percentage of error in it. Not much, but this is probably going to be the most accurate because it's consistently placed and it's measuring the same way every time. So I feel that it's going to give us the closest data that we can achieve from highs to lows and the average times. And the time of day, even through the night, it was picking up through 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and we're still seeing some of that traffic that's fluctuating from here. It would also, it would be difficult to do it, but it would be the start. If we were trying to figure out a crime or a burglary or something like that, we could at least show data of when traffic was going. The other benefit to this sign is this is set up in a unidirectional system right now where it's only measuring traffic one way. I can set it up to measure eastbound and westbound traffic, so I can capture cars going both ways and record that data. I haven't tried it yet because I wanted to talk, walk, run, and I'm still kind of at the walk phase. So once I get to that, just because I didn't want to overwhelm myself with the spreadsheets and trying to figure that out, because it adds another layer. So, but I felt that just these two categories out of the 6 that we could select up for data collection would be probably the most informative for you to see what would be available and things like that. It's just getting the officer, mainly myself, because it's my toy, I get to play with it first, but to get it set in places. And I've talked with Mr. Allman from the road crew as well. He said that he would turn around, if we go around and we'd mark it, if we figured out the locations, whether Chief and I or Sergeant Brower and I would figure out what locations we deemed that would be appropriate, because there's a lot of factors that come into placing it as well. Sightline visualization to an intersection is a problem, so we have a threshold that we've got to be above, so we don't impact that and cause an issue for the borough or things down the road. Once we can get some assigned points, but if we have some other ones, and if we have an existing road sign there, I was looking at one on Bishop Street. I think I'm going to take off the no parking on this side or the other side for a little bit, and it's 2 bolts and just a little bit of time. But we can move it around. I had one in front of one of the council members' houses for one day. I didn't even know she was on council. So, and the speeds I got there, they weren't inhibited, but the problem was they weren't seeing it, so I was still capturing data. But I left it up for that day, and I just wasn't completely comfortable because it was still within the 6'1", 6'2" range, and if somebody came by and hit their head on it, I didn't want to have to deal with the backlash of that. So, but it was still interesting to see the effect that it was gaining, because when the cars weren't parked on street parking, and that's the hindrance of this, is when you do have vehicles like Bishop Street, the 300-400 block of Bishop Street where cars are parked, that causes a line of sight thing, so the effectiveness is going to get down. It'll still record the data, but the impact to the public for awareness purposes will decrease. So it's a challenging thing in something that has on-street parking, but we'll figure it out.
Officer Lewis, I just wanted to tell you, a couple of years, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we brought this to council to look at, to look at one of these. At the time, they were a little more costly than they are now, but I just want to make sure that I thank you for taking the time, your time, to write that grant and get this for the borough. I think it's going to be a wonderful tool for the police department, and, it's going to provide a lot of information to you. As all this that you just talked about up to now, I think is going to be very helpful. And anytime you want to put it in front of my house, feel free.
That's been the general consensus with some people seen it, because they've seen me wrestling with it the other day on it was just, fate would have it, I was trying to put it up on Howard Street, and no matter where I was at, it was one hole off. I mean, it wasn't lining up, and I couldn't get it secured. And that's going to be the biggest hindrance. And the letters of community support from the school district to Senator Corman's office, Representative Benninghoff, Bellefonte EMS, they all wrote letters of support, as well as Chief Weaver and the borough, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Holderman as well. They drafted letters to support. The feedback that I got from All Traffic Solutions was that was one of the most complete packets that they've ever gotten. It's not a very long packet, but they said there was so much in it, they didn't even take time, because the corporation doesn't decide. The employees within inside of their company, they give them the information and they decide through who gets it. So the support of the community is what really kind of drove that. And I think that at some point we'll do a little more formal thing and make some recognition. I'd like to figure something out with that, and we'll see where this comes to. But other than that, for 1 year, we have free use of their cloud services, and then there's some expenses which we found some alternative funding to maintain that, so we'll have availability to data, pretty much year round.
You said you couldn't use it for enforcement, but does that include warnings too? You can't give pumping a warning with that?
That gets challenging, because we're still in the midst of radar bill,
Yeah.
and where that's at, but it's still an enforcement procedure when you pull somebody over for a warning. So if I was sitting there and happened to be watching it, say from the Armory, and I looked down and it said 98, would we have a conversation? There's other sections that might apply just to what I observe. So,
But the one they have in Lamont is very effective.
yeah, and there's some things we're working on with them that we're going to attach a battery pack to the back of it, and it will have actually red and blue indicators on the bottom of it, that when you get to the higher threshold, it'll start to light up, and then that'll be the time when we start to maybe park a car down in the NRAD unit. So, as they're coming in at those kind of speeds, then that's time somebody's accountable.
I guess the only other question, when it's up, you have somebody near it when it's on? You can
I left
use
it up there all week.
Well, I was just wondering, vandalism, is it pretty tough that
Officer
there's?
Lou said earlier,
Here.
real quick, if I might add, when he picked that up, it's tamper-proof. It'll take a picture. He talks about the NRAD unit. The NRAD unit, I don't know if you understand, it's basically a pole, and it has an antenna, and then there's another antenna that shoots an infrared light or beam across the road. And it's about a $4,000 piece of equipment.
NRAD, if it starts at 4, it's
Right, it's very expensive. So we have to set it up, level it, and we have to have a car parked, within visual of it,
feet.
within 100 feet of it, and then you have chase cars. Well, there was like 2 of us running it one day, and we took a half hour to set it up. Everything was level, the beam was shooting across, and we ran a car through, and so we got a domestic call, so we all had to leave. We come back, and our NRAD unit is in the back of a guy's truck going down the road. And we stopped, and he thought it was scrap, he said. Yeah, $5,000 piece of scrap. So this, I don't want this thing stolen, that's for sure.
Well, and I don't want to tell some of the features that are in it right now just because of the media outlet of it. I will gladly speak to you of some of the features that are in it to assist us if something were to happen. So, but even right now, leaning here, when I set it over against the cabinet, it's 7:18. It took a picture and it's on your screen. So, and then there'll be another tamper picture that'll come down as soon as it processes through. So that's something that it's doing.
Just a question.
Yes.
Can you locate the sign down on the diamond since we've had a lot of issues there?
We'll have to strategically figure that one out. I've spent several hours riding around, looming at the borough, trying to figure out where places would be that would be effective but not impeding. So that's the hurdle that I face with this particular sign, and that's why I want to talk to him about one that might turn around and just count the speed. You know, that's a smaller device that would be two antennas and data storage that they can send back, because you know we'll get that information at least, but it's getting harder to put this device up when it's 2 feet wide versus something on that line. I'm working on another pet project with the school district. It might be a little bit bigger than this, but it'll utilize a parking space, which we'll take up a parking space if we have to. But I kind of chose middle of the road when I had my choice. I didn't want to seem overzealous and greedy, but this had the opportunity to do this. Pictures of the ceiling. I think I have some in here of the cars. This has been it takes awareness pictures at a predetermined time that I set up. But here's an awareness image just from Howard Street. This is just the average time frames that I set it up. That's the clarity of the camera that's in the device. So, and if somebody were to tamper with it like I did here just by moving it, and it'll go dead for a period of time, and I have that set at a very low window, so it'll refresh its rate and come back on. If an excessive speed hits it, some people like to play the game where they want to run the speed up to see what numbers they can get up on the scoreboard. Well, unfortunately, there's a threshold where that turns off and you don't win any prize. So, and hopefully one of us is sitting down the street to witness you, because you'll never get decelerated when you get past that threshold before you get to us. So those are the kind of things that it was doing. And and if I can bear with me here a second, I have in the image type, you'll see some of them are listed as high-speed events, and this is what I was telling you about. I have some here, if I can find it. It's like this image. This car's picked up, and if I recall, that one was at 57 when I was looking at it. The unfortunate problem is the threshold was set lower to indicate a high-speed event, so the problem was the timing to get it in this area. And that's stuff that they're working on through their technology and software to try and incorporate that to match it so we don't have to have a human factor in it. But it picked this car up. Here's just where I'm pointing at now is the entrance to the armory. It started detecting the car on down at Northwest. So, and it maintained into the threshold, and it decelerated as it was approaching the sign. So that was one in particular. I had saved some of these images for this purpose. There was one, and I think it might have accidentally got deleted. It was one of our patrol cars coming through, and his lights were on. And to let you know, the speed limit was 35. He was at 43, and his light bar was lit up because I could pick up the overcast in the light. So that was one I wanted to keep and print out, but I didn't have a chance to capture that data to the point I could get it. But that speeds and the traffic in there were still in the 40s, low 40s, mid 40s. So the guys are doing it right.
He was going to Dunkin', right?
Yeah, but the code. Yeah, well, they were in the wrong part of town if they were going to Dunkin' Donuts. That or they were late for the donuts that got to the station. So,
I need to start switching gears.
yeah. I appreciate your time and the offer to come up and have a to present this to you. It's been something that I think that it's been a long process, back and forth of emails and talking to people, but I think it'll prove to be something, and maybe down the road something. If the borough wants to look at any other ones, we can figure out what that would be, and they can look at the cost. And the cost wasn't obtrusive to where it used to be whenever Dawn and I were talking about it 5 years ago. It's probably a fraction of that now. So maybe at some point down the road, if there's other ones or other devices we can look at it makes it more effective for the officer at the end of the day. It really does. Time management seems to be the biggest hindrance we're troubled with. There's not enough of us to go around some days, but this will kind of alleviate the factor. So, do you have any questions? All right.
Thanks for your hard work.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
So we have about 3 minutes. Step out. (7:31), so we'll call the meeting to order. Please, we had an executive session at 6:30 this evening. We talked about real estate, personnel, and security. Then had a work session from 7 to 7:30. This time, we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for the earthquake victims in Haiti who lost loved ones' homes, and for the survivors and rescuers who continue their rescue work with a tropical storm soon upon them.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Ms. Hombowski,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Prendergast.
Here.
Mr. Halderman.
Present.
Ms. Tosti-Vasey is excused. Ms. Cleaton.
Here.
Mr. Brackville.
Here.
Ms. Abbott.
Here.
Mr. Eaton.
Here.
Mayor Wilson.
Present. Okay, that moves us into the consent agenda. There were some changes made, and the new agenda was sent out this morning. I'm hoping everybody had received that. I do want to make a comment under consent agenda. The police report was removed, but also the parking enforcement report was also removed under the mayor's report. So other than that, we added the planning commission recommendations, and I think that was, we removed the Rotary Club out of the written communications. So what's in the consent agenda now is finance, the general council meetings of August 2nd, Harbs recommendation, planning recommendation, correspondence from Bellefonte Sunrise Rotary Club, and correspondence from Center County Hope Initiative. I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion, Eaton. Second. Prendergast.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Move on to written communications. Ralph?
First one is in regard to either a request for a speed bump or a speed limit sign on Crawford Lane due to increased travel and high speeds. People are cutting through from Bishop Street and Blanchard Street and vice versa. Council might consider sending this to a subcommittee or a work session.
I think when we met about the agenda, we thought we'd send this to the Streets Committee. Streets Committee meets every Thursday at noon, so if you want to participate in that, we can send you a link, and you can join that meeting, and you add into discussion. Because one of the things we talked about was, if we start putting bumps in the road, there's going to be others that are going to request it, and we're going to have to take a look and see how that would pan out moving forward then. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yes. Next item is a request for a special event approval. It's called Paint in the Park. They're looking at Talleyrand Park. It's basically a for-profit small business enterprise. They'd like to use the park. The dates have not been set, but if they get permission, even conditional approval, they will pursue the exact dates. This you may want to send to the Parks Committee to look at.
Yeah, I thought I had a question on this. But we can send it to Parks, and the other thing I was looking at was any dates and times, and then we were going to refer it to Parks and maybe possibly meet with Ms. Furr on this as well.
Yes.
Can I make a motion to conditionally approve it? And if the Parks Committee is satisfied with it, they can give the approval?
Yeah,
All right.
I would second that.
I will make the
We can
motion. So I'd like to discuss it after I made the motion. What are the dates?
There are no
There are no
dates. They're
dates.
going to set.
That's
They're
why.
just getting permission first, and then they'll look at the dates.
Well, I made the motion and Mike seconded, so conditionally. I have no further discussion from me.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of conditionally approving the request for, so what was that?
It's called
Paint in the park in
Yeah.
Talleyrand Park? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
Thank you.
I do have a question I probably should have asked there. If you permit this and you permit the girl with the picnic business she has down there in the park, and if you get a half a dozen more, is there a limit to how many people we're going to set up in the park? Or I'm not sure where this will lead to be honest. I guess that's my question. I mean, if you allow one, you allow two, you got to allow everybody else to request, basically.
We can discuss that in our parks
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay.
That's a better space for it.
Yeah, sure.
Does that answer your question about?
Sure, yeah. Just something to think about. That's
Okay.
What about the parks?
Next item, Bellefonte Lions Club wants to do their annual rib sale, which is usually held, they're proposing to do August 9th. The location is usually by the Brownstone Building. Of course, the spaces are currently blocked off right now, but they would like to use that same area and are looking for permission to do so.
It's October 9th.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I'll make a
whatever.
motion to approve
Sorry
the
about that.
request by the Lions Club for October 9th,
Thank you.
2021, utilizing the 4 spaces that are currently blocked off, with the understanding that the medians, the plastic median guys will be there and they'll have to work around those for their setup crew. They usually put up a couple tents and they're staffed with traffic control. So I don't see any problem with it.
Yeah, as
Actually,
long as they're
Well,
aware of
we have a
the-
motion, and we have a second.
Second.
So, motion by Mr. Johnson, second
I'll
by
second it, Cleve.
Buddy already
Buddy
did.
Hill. Mr. Holden, second. Okay, now we can have discussion.
I was just gonna say, as long as they're aware of the changes, with the new stuff that's gonna be out there by that time, and that they, thank you, that they, will know ahead of time what it, I mean, I guess it'll be up there far
Yes.
enough ahead that they can look at it and
See if
figure
they
out
can
how
work
to make
with
it
it.
work.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions I had on this, because we need to be able to see where those delineators are going to be placed and how much room that actually takes up in those parking areas. So, so if this gets done here early in September, if they can get that side done, that would be able, you'd be able to take a look at that and see if things are still going to fit in
Well,
there.
I think Brett Myers is on the borough staff, so I think he's going to be well aware of where these delineators are going to be placed. So I don't, yeah, I agree, Randy, but I think they'll be fine.
So all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All right.
All opposed? Carried.
Next item is Bellefonte Sunrise Rotary Club would like to do the Fall Festival, which will be October 30th, requesting to use both sides of Talleyrand Park. The setup would be pretty much all day till 4 p.m.
I'll make a motion.
For Bellefonte Sunrise Rotary to approve the request of October 30th for the Talleyrand Park and Annex.
I'll second that motion.
Motion by Hambosky, second by Thompson. Any other discussion?
A question about the proposed food trucks on High Street. Is that going to conflict with Bonfatos and My Buzz Cafe because it's on a Saturday during business hours?
I thought the food trucks were over by, maybe I misread it, but I thought that they said the food trucks were gonna be on the other side.
They wanted both on
Close.
They
street
wanted
and-
they wanted all the meters bagged on the south side of High Street, across from the cafe and, just across the tracks from
This
Bonfatos.
is considered a special event.
Yeah.
There's a
Waiver there for that, to allow that.
The only input I had on this was, the variant's starting to raise some numbers. And when we were passing and approving things in the park, we put a condition on there that we would have the right to cancel if numbers
That's
and
true.
and CDC stuff starts to say, well, now you got to do this, you got to do that, or so many people, however it works out. I'm hoping we don't come to that, but,
If we- if they do
we've been there
it, we should
before.
have-
I don't want to go there again, but we might have to. And I would just say, if we're approving things for the park, that just becomes a statement along with
Okay.
the motion. If that-
Do we need to make an amendment?
No, it's just a statement that may not affect anything. So, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Okay. Bellefonte Soccer Association would like to use the soccer field at Governor's Park August 30th through November 6th. They have a practice schedule, that's Mondays through Thursday, 5:30 to 8:30. Games will be Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 1. Looking for just general approval.
And I'll make that motion, as long as they coordinated with the
Other events and other
Yeah.
things already scheduled. Sure.
So we have a motion by Mr. Prendergast, or a second?
I'll second Hambosky.
Discussion?
I will add on to this that we've spoken to them before about COVID precautions, so they are well aware of what they need to do.
Yeah, in their letter, they have spelled out pretty well, too. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries.
There's a something called Small Town America Civic Volunteer Award. It's actually a for-profit company, but we came across the information. If you're interested or know of someone you'd like to nominate, the nominations are due October 15th. We can help you with the forms or whatever if you would like to do that.
Joanne had asked this to be put in the packet, and I think it's a good idea. We have a lot of volunteer groups that do good things for Bellefonte, and we might be able to utilize them and submit some of those. And I thought maybe if we could set up the committee, what do we call that with the president, vice president?
Second officers, executive committee.
So I thought the three of us could do that.
Sure.
And possibly meet with other people if we need to get some clarification. So
Good idea.
that's what we'll do with it then.
Thank you.
I don't think we need a motion. We just
Yeah, okay. So there is one item that's at the table this evening. It's not on the agenda. It just came in this afternoon, although I know I believe it was the Streets Committee, had some guests at their meeting to talk about this event. It's called Friday in the Font through Bellefonte, or Downtown Bellefonte Incorporated. As you know, they do the Friday in the Fonts the last Friday of the month. And the last one, September 24th, I believe it's the last one, they would like asking council to approve a change, a request. In addition to them using around the courthouse, they would like to request closing High Street from the courthouse or Allegheny down to Spring. And then that area would be closed from 3:45 to 9:15. They would have entertainment, live music, craft beverages, and dining all in that area. I know the alcohol raised some questions because of previous requests in that area, but this is the formal request we just got today.
And you're also asking for free parking.
Yes, free parking throughout the town for that Friday.
Can I have a motion to approve this?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Prendergast with the second.
I'll second it, Clayton.
Second by Clayton. Discussion?
The concern from the Streets Committee was about the alcohol, that it had not been approved in the past when the Cruz had made a very similar request. It was thought that probably our lawyers would not think it was a good idea to be backing this. There was talk about whether or not they could use private property to in that same area to have it there. So I think that in the Streets Committee meeting this Thursday, the main concern that all of these things that they proposed sounded good, but that the serving of alcohol may be problematic.
And I think during that conversation, we do have an ordinance of open containers in downtown Bellefonte, and it's an ordinance, and that's not an ordinance we need to follow. We kind of got burnt with the food truck at a recent show program downtown because there's an ordinance. So we either follow the ordinance or we don't. And it's our job to support what the Bellefonte guidelines are, in my view. John?
Is there any possibility that they could restrict the alcohol to a limited area and basically put up a fence or a barrier to cordon it off so that it could still be served, but it would be within a restricted
They were
area?
planning on doing that. That was part of their proposal. But again,
Well,
we
we allow it down in Talleyrand for like the tasting trail. So where do we draw the line? Where downtown's not any good, but Talleyrand's okay?
Previous councils have drawn that exact line.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, They pretty much allow it in Talleyrand Park, but have said no to, like, on the Diamond area. But I don't know if it's because the cars are there close by. There was maybe the security as far as the enclosed area they didn't feel was as secure as it should be or could be. But that's where the line was drawn for sure.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't last month on Howard Street, wasn't there alcohol service?
Yes, I don't,
That
It was not approved by
that
council.
wasn't
Oh, it was unapproved.
specifically
Well,
requested.
maybe they should do it unapproved again this.
They brought it up.
Yeah.
It was unapproved. I didn't know that.
I'm a part of that streets committee, and I have to agree with the other members of the committee, as much as I don't want to, but it was brought to our attention that it would be, the borough would be liable, we suspect, for any accidents that may occur. As painful as it is to turn it down, I have to agree with the rest of the committee members. That, I can't recommend it.
I think the other thing we talked about too was when we've done this in the past and people want to get a drink, we try to point out the restaurants that are around.
Right.
You can go in and get a refreshment, an adult beverage.
Yeah, maybe they can do some kind of a tie-in with the
Well, that's what this,
downtown
that's what this
Bellefonte.
is all about, Mike, to promote
Yeah.
businesses for the
So
downtown business.
so they should, instead of having outside craft beer, or have it in association with some other dining establishment in town.
Well, the businesses,
But vendors are local, though.
Part-
And I didn't have anything to do with planning Friday in the Funk, but I can tell you our citizens were really happy that they got
Oh,
to,
I'd
they got
be
to have
happy
a
too.
drink on
I'd
the
be
street.
happy too, but like, I do agree that we have turned it down in the past, and we should be consistent.
well, and we're representing who here?
Constituents.
Oh.
The citizens. Oh, okay.
Well,
Okay.
you're representing the law basically because that's what an ordinance is. And
Yeah, well,
I
then maybe
understand it.
we need to relook at that and,
We are representing the borough of Bellefonte for liability purposes.
always.
At minimum, we should, if you're at least even remotely interested, get an opinion from the insurance company or the borough solicitor. But we're not citizens, we're representing the borough.
I thought.
And we have to be prepared that if we approve it, that we're going to need to then the cruise and other downtown
Yes.
activities will
We'll want to try it again.
expect the same, and rightly so.
If we're looking at it from a liability standpoint, what would be the difference from downtown and Talleyrand?
When we talked about it with the cruise, there were, a mix of adults and children, and this is a small footprint that they're using for the Friday in the Font.
Yeah.
And we suggested just putting something down at the park, let this alcoholic part go down into the park area because we're able, more of a contained area and it can be marked off.
On the courthouse lawn?
They
We're
don't,
not allowed to have
They said,
property.
they said no. I wonder why.
I wonder why,
exactly, right there's your message.
But maybe in future, we want to consider looking at the ordinance
That's right.
for this type of event. But for this upcoming event, it's like, say no to the alcohol, but we can look at it in the future for modifying our ordinances.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion?
So, do we need to make an amendment for the alcohol? Have that stricken? Or can we just put that in the wording for the approval?
Right now, I think the motion just states that we would approve this request, so I think we'd have to have an addendum to it that would remove the alcohol part, but everything else would be
Or
fine.
deny this
Or
one. If
deny.
it's voted down, then you make another request without alcohol. But the dates stay the same, but.
Or I can ask for a request to approve the alcohol. So it's a positive motion, and then if you vote yes, you're voting for the alcohol. If you vote no, you're voting not for it.
Let me just say this,
Do it.
if the event without the alcohol happens, you have to approve it tonight to get PennDOT approval. This is the last meeting before September. There's just not enough time if you wait till the September meeting to do anything, so.
I'll make an amendment to the original motion to exclude the alcohol.
Okay.
We could approve it without the alcohol.
I'll
Amendment by
second that.
Pendergast,
You need a second.
seconded by Halderman. Any more discussion on that one? Pretty much covered that. Okay, all those in favor of keeping alcohol, signify by saying aye.
Keeping it with?
It's a positive motion. A positive motion is you get a chance to vote for it. But if you're not for it, you vote no. If you are for it, you vote yes.
Can I ask, shouldn't we vote on the amendment first to remove the alcohol and then approve it?
That's what it is. That's what we're doing. We're voting on the amendment.
Okay.
So the amendment is to strike the alcohol.
Is that what you said, Mike, or do you?
Right.
Okay,
The
I'm sorry.
amendment is to
I
strike
misheard
the
that
alcohol.
then. So, yeah. So it's not a positive motion.
That's a negative.
It's a negative. I don't like
I'm a
negative
negative
motions.
kind of guy.
So let's move on with that. All those in favor of no alcohol signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. One no. I made that harder than it needed to be.
Now you're gonna do the motion for the.
Okay, now we move into the main motion to approve the request for the September, what's that date, 24th, Friday in the font,
And the closing of the street and
and
everything.
closing of the streets.
You already have a motion and a second.
You've already have that, so confuse me. Any more discussion on the main motion? Okay, all those in favor of the main motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
That's all I have under written
Can
communications.
I have one more thing?
Sure.
This letter that Jenny Lynch sent, she forwarded me her email. There was an addendum in the email. That was sent to you. It's fine.
Okay.
I'll just read it, because it's an additional request for Under the Lights.
Okay.
Downtown Bellefonte Inc.'s signature event, Under the Lights, is rapidly approaching. After discussions with event partners, including the Gamble Mill, it was suggested that DBI request the borough to keep Lamb Street Bridge closed for the entirety of the event. We are requesting the closure of Lamb Street Bridge from Friday, September 3rd at noon until Saturday, September 4th at midnight. I'll make that motion.
A motion and a second to close Lamb Street Bridge for the duration of, during the day of, under the lights. What was the time on that again?
Noon on 9/3 to midnight on 9/4.
Any more discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us down to verbal communication for items on the agenda. You have 3 minutes to make your statement, and we'll take it from there. Seeing none, we will move to Office of Community Affairs. Anything under here right now is a nuisance code report, and Mr. Book's here tonight if somebody has questions for him. And we have the building and rental reports from Center Region COG. All these are from July of 2021.
Since I have been on here for quite a while, I'm not even sure, why do we get the nuisance code report? To me, I'm looking at 22 pages that Mr. Brooks had to print out, and I don't think I really need to know how many people didn't cut their grass or move their car or whatever on these nuisance things. It seems like a lot of time is spent making out a form when he could be out doing more inspections, and I'm not sure what good that information gives us. I mean, why it's there, for me anyway. Is there a reason why we get that? We never got it before, that's why I'm asking.
That's one of the reasons we're
Because we
getting
never got it before, that's why we're getting it now.
We really want to know.
Yes.
6 people didn't cut their grass.
You could say the same for the police report if you want to.
No,
We really
police
need to
report's
know
a little
that.
more.
No, what happened, Bud, was residents would come to me, I don't know if other council members, and they'd say, hey, why doesn't Mr. Foreman cut his grass? Hey, why are they growing flowers there when they're not so? Hey, why are they painting that? And we didn't have an answer. So, along with others that are employees or supervisors, we get reports of activity similar to the authority. Matt Allman produces his work, what he does at the wastewater treatment. So Mr. Brooks provides us with continuous feedback each month of what's going on in the borough. That you asked the question. I'm trying.
All I see is numbers. I don't see any names or addresses or whatever was taken care of. So it really, numbers don't mean anything, or that pie chart doesn't mean anything to me.
Maybe you just don't understand what it's trying to say.
Well, I think I do, but I just think it's a waste of time and our effort.
That's your opinion. My opinion,
Well,
as
I
someone who asked for it, is that I need to see very quickly the health of our town. And this allows me to see numbers that show me that things are getting better in this nuisance way.
Just ask why.
Yeah.
In all honesty, Councilman Holderman, when Harry came on board, this is how Harry does things. This is just Harry's record keeping. This is how good a job he is doing. And he's just giving us a running report. And as, well, yeah, we don't need to know names. We just need to know the incidents.
He has to know the names, we don't.
Yeah, Harry does. We just need to know the numbers.
It's okay, I just want to know why we're doing it.
But it's a good question.
Just
So-
Onward and upward.
Where are we?
We now move to reports. Mayor Wilson?
Okay, the parking report for July 1st to July 31st. I thought we gave that last meeting, but we'll give it again, unless these numbers are different. They look very similar.
I think maybe it should be, July, it should be.
It's in the packet.
Yes.
Yeah, it was in the packet, I know. And what else did we pull out of the packet and why?
I had questions on the police report, not so much on the enforcement, parking enforcement.
Yeah.
Or the meter revenue. What my question was on some of these reports, I'm seeing where we're doing things by race, and I'm wondering if that's a requirement. Is there a reason to do that? To me, it sounds, I don't know if it's,
Might be an ancient line item.
I mean, that's what it's here. It says total by race and percentage by race. You haven't seen your report.
You want to come up to the podium, Chief?
And I just didn't understand what it was concerned. I mean, I don't know what the purpose was,
Purpose of what? I didn't hear you.
including when arrest for juvenile, arrest by race is what it's called.
RAFE.
RACE, race.
Oh, race. Yeah, that was, so we have a new, policing has changed in the last year, the way people are looking at it and being more transparent. I just threw these are tools, and maybe I didn't explain it. I'm not putting these in every time. It's in our records management system. There's a drop down called Smart Policing, and it shows the numbers are for the amount of minorities that we have for a certain race in our town. Asians, African Americans, white. It's showing that the arrests the numbers aren't skewed. Okay, so if we have 3% African Americans, we don't have 70% arrests, and that's something that our system picks up on, and I can report it out. And it was just need to know, it's just information I threw out there. Just it's good to know information. So that's what that by race was.
Okay. I'm just not sure it's still really needed for us anyway, at this point.
Well, I mean, a lot of people want to see that and make sure their police department
But
isn't.
to me, it seems more like profiling than,
Well, the numbers will show that, you know, the arrests by race are basically, they're fair. That we're not over, you know, that. Yeah.
wasn't comfortable with the language. That was my question.
Well, yeah, if you want to hear the parking numbers, cash was 7,618, credit card was 2,134 for a total of $9,752.25 for the month of July. Police report was incident reports, giving an example of what transpires during some of the time periods, how the police stay occupied. One of the things that I know from conversations with some of the officers is that they're spending an awful lot of time, or a majority of time, tracking down stolen identities. A lot of that going on right now, and that, you know, computer crimes. They're not muggings in the street. They're not DUIs, but they're nonetheless crimes against our citizens that have to be dealt with by our police department. And it takes an awful lot of time to sit down and track that out. So that's one of the things that's consuming a lot of our officers' time right now. Let's see what else.
That's one question. I noticed that one thing that has become consistent for the last several months is the notice of being called to one particular business establishment. And has it been pointed out to that business establishment that we have become a regular customer?
Historically, that's been the place.
Okay.
They're still blowing on the ceiling. Last one in town.
You get a tour sometime.
All right, let's move on here.
All right, well,
Any questions for the mayor? You have more?
that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. We don't have a council report tonight. Joanne didn't leave anything to be reported, so we'll move on to building and property. Mr. Holderman? No report. Finance and government performance, Ms. Clayton.
Finance committee met on August 10th, and my notes are in the packet. If there are any questions about anything, we covered some of the items at the executive session earlier. There is also in your packet the master lease with Fulton Bank and Bellefonte Borough for the purchase of a new police vehicle. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt the Fulton Bank Resolution Number 08162021-01 for the purchase of a 2021 Ford Explorer police utility vehicle.
We have a motion.
I'll make the motion.
No, we have a motion. We have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Start.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve resolution 08162021-01. Is there any discussion on the motion? This is for a new police vehicle. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, and that's all I have.
Parks and Res. Yeah, Parks and
Recreation.
My report is in your packet from our meeting last, I guess, 2 weeks ago. I would like to make a motion to approve the YMCA's third annual Trick or Trot on October 30th. There is a map inside their request. It would begin at 8:30 and be over probably by 10 or 11.
motion, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mary, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Approval for the cameras.
Yes.
In the Finance Committee's packet, there is some more information. I believe I also included it in my Parks and Recreation
Yes.
meeting, or my Parks notes.
Right up.
Yeah, I would like to request approval for additional security cameras in Talleyrand Park for $750.
I think that's a great price.
Second.
Motion for additional cameras for the Talleyrand Park. Is there a second?
Second.
And that would come out of the general fund.
Okay. Mr. Holden with the second. Discussion?
I just note that the Chamber of Commerce is matching the same, about the same amount of money for the project.
Okay, that's good. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Any questions for Parks and Rec?
No.
Okay. I don't have anything in here for human resources, but John? you're up.
We held a meeting on August 4th. We discussed personnel issues. We will be doing an internal and an external job posting in the near future.
Thank you. Any questions for John? Seeing no, we'll move to safety. We had a workplace safety meeting this past week. We talked about a couple incidents. We discussed 2 incidents at the wastewater treatment plant. We talked about third quarter inspection for Talleyrand and Governor's Park. That inspection's date has not been set yet. We're waiting for the return of an employee who's on leave. We approved a time change of the workplace safety meeting from 1 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. on the second Wednesdays of each month. The days remain the same, but the time gets earlier. Also, there's be a reorganizational meeting of the safety committee that will complete on September 8th, and that'll be at that new time at 7:30 in the morning. Center Region Council of Governments, I went to that meeting on August 10th. For Bellefonte, the main takeaway was that the Center Region Code update on the new 2022 codes will be starting January 1st, 2022. Code officers plan to hold meetings with contractors to review the new 2020 codes. I also requested they provide similar reviews with member municipality councils and township supervisors. Many agreed that they thought this would be helpful, and the Center Region Code is willing to provide the information. The code review may be filmed and may be available on the Center Region Code's website, so any follow-up questions would need to be addressed back to the Center Region Code via phone or however. So I think they're trying to make it as easy as possible to go in and be able to view something, and you can look at it a couple times. So probably would be some help there. And that's my report on safety. Okay, moving on. Water refuge collection, compost facility. Mr. Gomes.
No, we had no committee meetings since the last committee meeting we had, which was months ago. You have the daily water withdrawal for July. It looks pretty consistent throughout the whole month to me. And then we have in your packet a response to the Spring Creek Watershed presentation at our last authority meeting. I hope you all had a chance to read the letter to Borough Council. Is this public information?
Yes.
This letter? Can I read the letter?
Sure, if you'd like.
Okay.
Sure.
To explain it, the Spring Creek Watershed is asking Bellefonte Borough to participate in what's called a One Water Plan, which is a county-wide water plan for all the boroughs, townships within the county. The Vice President, Paul Tackey, forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly, and William Sharp were at the authority meeting with the presentation from the Spring Creek Watershed. Full disclosure, our council president is the president or chair of the Spring Creek Watershed. In response to the presentation by Spring Creek Watershed at the Bellefonte Authority meeting, the authority composed a letter to send back to Borough Council. And I'd like to read that. Well, actually, they sent it to the Spring Creek Watershed, and there are copies in our packet. So I'd like to take a minute to read that response from the authority to the Vice President and William Sharp of the Spring Creek Watershed. Dear Paul and Bill, first of all, thank you for taking the time to present on August 3rd to the Authority Board the One Water Plan. This letter serves as a follow-up to your presentation and is meant to identify concerns expressed by the board members. There is skepticism related to your true intentions now and in future phases. Much of what you are proposing is already being done via county and municipal land development ordinances, comprehensive plans, source water protection plans, state and federal agencies, commissions, etc. We understood that the commission was to be doing the work of planning in the watershed since its inception over 20 years ago. The Bellefonte Borough Authority is opposed to any additional entities having a say, legal standing, or authority over any decisions related to who gets water, how much, and at what cost. Skepticism was heightened following the heavily politicized potential water sales in Spring Township to Nestle's company that took place prior to the One Water Plan idea. In an effort to reduce skepticism, the Bellefonte Borough Authority is requesting that the Commission and all participating municipalities approve a resolution that clearly states the Commission in no way now or in the future is intending to have any legal standing or authority in any Center County water systems operations, contract sales, consumptive uses, daily withdrawals, etc. The Commission is only a planning organization now and in the future. Unlike any other community in Center County, Bellefonte's name and identity is centered around water, the Big Spring. Water is a great source of pride for the citizens of Bellefonte. If your intentions are clarified through resolutions, we're open to exploring ways to work collaboratively with you. And it's signed sincerely from our borough manager and endorsed by all the members of the Bellefonte Authority. So at this time, I'm not sure about this, but it says we have to wait until September 7th meeting. I'm going to make a motion to turn down the participation in the One Water Plan by Bellefonte Borough.
I'll second it.
Second by, motion by Mr. Johnson, second by Mr. Holden. Discussion.
Excuse my ignorance, what's the One Water Plan?
I think you missed
Scott, you're talking
I'm
about
sure I've heard it before, but refresh my memory, because I don't know what are they asking to do?
At the presentation by their vice president, they conveyed that they were a planning organization. And as the authority is stating, there's skepticism about future phases and where they're going with everything, especially because of the episode, and I'm using that as a general generic term,
With
Nestle's in Spring Township.
I
So
understand that part, but what authority are they trying to impose?
what do you think? I think that's where the authority wants clarification.
Okay.
They're not insinuating anything, they're just saying, please clarify through some resolution that it's just a planning organization and nothing more.
As far as I know, we haven't heard any response yet from our letter.
Yeah, I don't
Well-
know when their meeting is, but I thought we had a very open discussion with those
We did.
people, and they understood where we as the borough want to protect our water system from outside it.
Influence.
Yeah,
I
influence.
understand that.
And they basically agreed with us. They said, we understand where you people are coming from. And they said, all we wanted is assurance. And the way they talked, they didn't think that was a problem. Was that right, Doug? I mean, they have to go back to their board, talk to
Well,
them.
yeah, a problem or not a problem, we can still disapprove or approve it,
Yes,
or
yes.
or not even vote on it.
Well, that's what I say, if we get a response back to them and said, yeah, we'll.
Then we
resolution,
then we could
then we
reconsider.
could- Yeah, could re-vote to join, as far as that goes.
I suggest that we table this until we receive information back.
I would-
Well, we could or we could vote on it.
Well, it's up to you, but you're.
Why wait?
Well, in one way, I guess
Yeah.
it's because you're willing to work at something, but now you just want to say no to it. And I'm just, the letter is indicating one thing, but we're taking a different action by.
Why would we say no to something when we're asking, the commission did not want to institute themselves as a planning body. What they were saying was, this would be a regional plan for the communities to come together with. If they wanted to use it as a planning document, they could. But until they come back and clarify, and this goes to your point, Randy, until they come back and respond saying, okay, this is a statement we would make to you, that we are not a governing authority, that we're merely trying to have community consensus to come up with some sort of regional plan. I would say that's the time that council could vote. This is the response from the authority.
I don't have my notes that I had that night of the meeting, but my questions to those guys were, and some of their mission statement, there was mention of that what they're looking for is enforcement of different regulations that they come up with. And that, to me, is a red flag saying, down the road, I'm going to tell you how much water you can give to somebody else.
If you heard enforcement from the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, I've never seen those guys. They have specifically always said that they are not an enforcement agency. And when the whole Nestle issue came up, that discussion at the Watershed Commission was squashed because they specifically said, we are not an enforcement agency. We have no authority in this matter. And they actually tabled any discussion by some people who were trying to make that a Spring Creek Watershed Commission issue. They said, this is not our area. We have no business in this. So I would say, let's wait for Spring Creek Watershed Commission to respond to the letter, and then we would vote on it. But I would say it's premature to turn down, because I think what you're going to find is the statement that you've asked for, they will say that is they are 100% in agreement with that. And Mike, you asked about the One Water Plan. If we back up 20 years ago, there was a concept in the state to have some sort of statewide water planning thing, or water planning program. And the state realized that that wasn't going to go anywhere. And because if any of these plans come together and they're ever successful, they have to come from local entities. And where this started was down south. Georgia was like the first state that actually was able to do this, where they actually went to the various parts, the various regions of Georgia, and Georgia's a very conservative area, and they said, okay, what do you local people want as far as your regional plan? What do you want protected? What do you want saved? What do you want us to do? And every region came up with a plan, and then they put them all together. And they found that was successful. Every time there's been a program where it comes from the state level down, there's just resistance, and there's never anything that happens and goes forward. So I would say, let's have the commission people come back and say, tell them what the response is. I think you're going to find out that they're going to say, we are fine with this statement.
So I have one comment on that. That when, during our discussion with the watershed, part of this one water plan is to have, when the watershed is applying for grants to run their organization, if all the townships and boroughs are in agreement with what they're doing, it gives them more energy or more chances of getting the grants. So here we are, if we say, yes, we want to participate, well, we may be giving them grant money that we could use ourselves, or grant money to use against us when they say, we want you to do this with your water. So we're actually, we could be fueling grants that could work against this borough water system in the long run. Now, it certainly looks better when all of Center County's townships and boroughs are on board.
This is just Spring Creek. This is not all of Center County. This is Spring Creek.
Okay, well, it's still, and the gentleman admitted that the likelihood of funding becomes greater if all of us are on board.
Right, yeah. Which also indicates that it would be more likely if there's a group that agrees and we get money, then one isolated borough like Bellefonte would have the chance of getting that money.
We've been isolated before. We've had the big spring. It's part of our town. It's
All
part of our history.
All I'm saying,
I'm going to move this forward. We can argue about this all we want, but I think we're getting too deep in the weeds. I kind of agree on both sides, but I thought what we did was we turned this over to the Water Authority to give us a recommendation. You made the recommendation of sending out the letter and having that done. If you don't want to let that letter get answered and you want to make a motion, make the motion.
I already made it.
Yeah, there's a motion and second on the floor.
So
To
that's
turn down.
part of the discussion right now.
I
Yeah.
would vote to table it until the next meeting, at least, or until we get a response. Because I don't feel I have enough information to make an
So we
intelligent
have a motion to
decision.
table. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So this motion is tabled until we get a response to the authority matter. Okay.
Do we have to vote on that?
No, not a table. I think it's just a, do we? I don't
I think you vote on, but I don't think there's discussion. I think once it's,
Just a vote?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
we'll
so.
vote on it then. All those in favor of to table this motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
No,
2 nays.
motion carries.
Okay, streets?
Yes.
Mayor?
There is, so we met on August 12th. There is a status report on the Railroad Street Bridge project in your packet. If anybody has any questions about that, Ralph says he will answer them. If nothing else about that, the Streets Committee has about 100 irons in the fire, but nothing to bring to you at this time. So maybe next month I'll do one of my long list of streets, but not this month.
That's great. Any questions for streets? Okay, moving on to energy and environmental conservation. Mike?
We did not have a meeting since the last council meeting, so there's nothing really to report. We are having a meeting this coming Wednesday, and we have we've been in contact with Solar United Neighbors of Pennsylvania, and it's a collective that promotes electrification of people's houses, neighborhoods, whatever. Well, we're going to see where that leads, see if there's anything that the borough can get out of it.
Any questions, Mike? Seeing none, we will move on. We're going to skip special committee reports. There are none tonight. And move to borough manager report. Ralph,
It's submitted. If you have any questions, just let me know.
any questions for Ralph? Seeing none, we move to old business.
Couple of reminders. One, the Bellefonte EMS, or Emergency Medical Service, their annual meeting is August 30th. They had asked that we or you RSVP by the 25th. If you need any assistance with that, please let us know. Next item is the Boroughs Fall Conference is October, Boroughs Association's Conference is October 8th through the 10th in Erie. I will say the funds, I checked with Lori today, for education were very, very small in the budget, and there's not a lot of room there, so we'd have to look at, if you're interested, let me know. I can see where we're at, if there's any additional funds or what have you, but I'm just trying to get a head count at this point if you're interested.
I'm going, but I'm covered by PSAB.
Okay, all right, good.
As you are.
Yeah.
The other question I had, I'm going to the EMS annual meeting. I know Deb signed up. I don't know if anybody else has or not, but so far I know there's two of us going.
If I hear of any more, I'll let you know, but I could check to see if Alyssa heard from anybody. We just, at the last meeting, I believe it was, the borough and the Spring Township said we would write a joint letter to the Center County Metropolitan Planning Organization, who does the transportation planning spending for the county. We write this joint letter about the intersection involving Mill Street, Phoenix Avenue, and SR 150, trying to get that on their funding plan. And that letter has been approved by both bodies and is on its way. I believe Mr. Zilla is out this week, but the letter is on its way soon, if not already.
Any other old business? Seeing none, we'll move to new business.
First one's the CATA route changes, and I think we have noted that Ms. Clayton would give an overview.
I just want to remind the public that the CATA Fall service goes into effect this Saturday, the 21st, that the fixed route XB will return to Bellefonte on Monday, the 23rd. Your best bet is to go to the website and check their schedule and the route, because it has changed a little bit. But what I wanted to really let people know about is that CATA will offer discounts on select bus passes through the fall months. Passengers purchasing a one pass of any length between Sunday, August 1st and Friday, December 1st will receive 50% off their purchase. One passes are available in increments of 1 to 12 months and are normally available for purchase from CATA's Customer Service Center for $86 a month. During this period, they will be available for $43 a month. So if you're a regular rider, you're going to be cutting your fare in half. And if you purchase a one-year pass, it's going to save you about $500. Passes may be used for fare on both CATA Bus Fixed Route and the CATAGO Microtransit service, and provides unlimited use of the services. So if you ride the bus every day or you ride multiple times during the day, this is a great deal, and if you have to switch buses, you don't have to get a paper transfer. But again, go to the website and check. Under announcements, it's the first item on their drop-down menu. So get on the bus, it'll be back.
Center Region Council of Governments, who does our building code inspections and all of that, hired a new customer service manager. At some upcoming meeting, we'll have that person come in and introduce themselves. So I just wanted to leave you know of that. And the Pennsylvania Municipal League, another municipal association, has a leadership summit coming up October 7th through the 9th. I believe it is in Lancaster. They're looking for whoever the delegate is, approved by council, that we get that. If someone's interested in going, the council approves a delegate, and then they could vote and be on the resolutions committee once they're there. Just again, if you're interested or even remotely interested, leave us know, because we've got to look at the budget to see if we're okay or what can be moved around.
Anything else for new business?
I have something.
Yes, go ahead.
With the opening of the Gamble Mill and the experience with Buzz Cafe, I would like to ask, at least those two business owners, or any new business owner or business owner, now that we've had Center Region Code here for the length of time that they've been here, I would like to have an exit interview with the Gamble Mill folks and the My Buzz Cafe folks. Those are the only two that come to mind. I'm sure there are others. With the Executive Committee of Borough Council and the Borough Administration, which would be the Ralph and Dawn, with the business owners and Center Region Code there, to see what sort of good, bad, or the ugly experience they might have had with Center Region Code in going through the process that they've gone through. So I'd like our borough manager to get in touch with those businesses and see if they'd be interested in participating in an exit interview with the borough.
So do you want a list from DBI of all the businesses that have opened in the past,
Yeah,
6
sure.
months?
Whoever would like to participate. I'm just looking for feedback of their experience. How can we help them? What can we improve? And what has become a problem, what was problematic for them, if there was anything?
Okay, I can ask.
The first item I wanted to bring up to council is we had a phone call and an email today from the solicitor of the Nittany Valley Joint Recreation Authority. As you know, they received the Land and Water Conservation Fund Act to perform some enhancements on Kepler Pool. Currently we have, when we transfer the property over to the Nittany Valley Joint Rec Authority, in the deed it's stipulated that should anything occur to the authority, that the property would defer back to Bellefonte Borough. Given this new grant opportunity that they have from DCNR, what they have now is the DCNR is requiring in this grant that there can be no change of ownership without the property without written consent of DCNR. So this is what they're looking for, is just to make sure that our borough is aware of it and that you're okay with that change to the deed. That would be a requirement for the rec authority to receive this or move forward with their grant opportunity.
So you requesting a motion?
Yes, we'd like to have a
I'll
motion.
make that motion.
Motion by
I'll second it.
John and second by Mike.
Eaton and Prendergast.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries unanimous.
Second item I'd like to just quickly bring up, and it's a timing issue because I'm not sure when the actual grant application is due, but I've talked to council a couple months ago, and I'm meeting with the Solid Waste and Recycling Authority this Wednesday, along with a DEP representative regarding the 902 grant that DEP offers. It's the 90% grant, 10% matching grant that we've had before. We received it before, mostly for upgrades to Musser Lane composting site. And just in the instance that that grant application is going to be due before council meets again, because we're on our 3-week hiatus here before our next meeting, if the grant application's due before we meet, I'd like to see if council would entertain a motion for me to proceed with the grant for $250,000. That would be $275,000. That would be a $25,000 match. And the resolution that would go along with the application. The projects that we would be putting in for will be a skid steer, a packing system, and to increase the leaf composting pad that we put down there, because the one that we did is so full that we could use a little more space. So
I'll make the motion. Motion by Mr. Eaton's. Is there
I'll
a
make it second.
Mr. Prendergast, second. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, Don.
Yes, thank you. Did you have a question about a handicap stall? Because that didn't come up tonight.
They personally didn't come in.
Okay. All right, we're now into verbal comment on issues not on the agenda. Is there anybody that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
John?
I'll second it.
Second, Mike. And I assume we're all in favor for that.
I don't think you have too many dissenters.
8:39. 8:30.